Worthiness is not earned through usefulness or performance. It is inherent and must be claimed, not proven. Prologue. I'd spent 24 years perfecting the art of being invisible. Tonight, in front of 250 wolves who could smell my mortality, my fear, my desperation to belong, I failed spectacularly. The laughter started soft, a ripple of amusement from the cluster of elite she-wolves near the champagne fountain. Then it grew, spread, fed on itself until the sound filled the ceremony hall like breaking glass. They weren't even trying to hide it. Why would they? I was no one. The orphaned human girl in a homemade dress, standing in a ballroom that cost more than I'd earned in my entire life. Did she make that from curtains? The voice carried, meant to carry. Sharp and crystalline, like everything else about Vivian Blackwood. How did she even get invited? My hands found each other at my waist, fingers twisting in the fabric of my grandmother's wedding dress. The ivory lace had yellowed slightly with age, the cut decades out of style, the hem hand-stitched because I couldn't afford a proper seamstress, and I'd always been better at mending things than anything else. To them, it was laughable. To me, it was sacred. It was all I had left of her. I should have left. Every instinct screamed at me to turn, to flee, to disappear back into the comfortable shadows where I belonged. But then I felt it, a pressure against my skin, a sudden electric awareness that made every hair on my body stand on end. Someone was watching me, not with mockery, with something that felt like hunger. I turned and locked eyes with the Alpha. Marcus Thorne stood across the ceremony hall like a wolf among dogs, taller than the others, broader, with a stillness that made everyone else's movements look frantic. His eyes were gold. Not brown, not amber. Gold, like coins catching firelight, and they were fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Then the bond slammed into place. It felt like lightning striking from the inside out. A golden thread snapping taut between us, humming with power, pulling me toward him even though my feet stayed rooted to the marble floor. I gasped and the sound was swallowed by the sudden rushing in my ears. Emotions that weren't mine flooded through me. Desire so fierce it scorched, guilt that tasted like ash, fear that made my heart stutter. He was afraid. The Alpha of Silverpine, the most powerful wolf in 3 territories, was terrified. Of me. Of this. Of us. The realization cut deeper than the laughter had. I'd felt worthless before, but this was being chosen by someone who regretted you before the choice was even complete. I could feel it through the bond, that horrible, suffocating dread bleeding from him into me until I couldn't tell where his fear ended and mine began. I turned. The exit was 12 paces away. I'd counted earlier, before everything went wrong, when I'd still thought I could make it through one night without being noticed. Clara. His voice stopped me, deep and rough, with something raw underneath that made the bond between us flare hot and bright. Wait! I didn't want to wait. I wanted to run, to disappear, to never feel this crushing weight of being seen and found wanting. But my body betrayed me, turning back toward him even as my mind screamed to flee. He was moving toward me. The crowd parted for him automatically, a sea of designer gowns and tailored suits making way for their Alpha. I watched him approach, and through the bond I felt every step. His wolf clawing to get closer, his human side warring with itself, that terrible fear wrapping tighter and tighter around both of us. You're my mate. The words came out like a confession, like an accusation, like a prayer. His eyes, those impossible gold eyes, locked onto mine, and the bond between us pulled so tight it hurt. I felt it the moment you walked in. The laughter had stopped. The entire ceremony hall had gone silent, 250 wolves watching the Alpha claim the charity case in the homemade dress. I could feel their shock rippling through the air, their disbelief, their judgment. "I felt what you felt," I whispered. My throat was tight, my voice barely audible even in the silence. "You don't want this." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Or recognition. Clara? Neither do I. The lie tasted bitter, because some traitorous part of me did want it. Wanted to be chosen. Wanted to belong. Wanted to believe that someone like him could look at someone like me and see anything worth keeping. But wanting it wouldn't make it real. Wanting it wouldn't erase the fear I could feel pulsing through our bond with every beat of his heart. I turned again, made it 3 steps toward the exit before his hand caught my wrist. "Please, just that one word, barely more than a breath." "Let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." I tried to pull away, but his grip was gentle and immovable. "The bond doesn't lie. I felt your fear, your guilt. You don't have to pretend. You're right." His voice dropped lower, for my ears only. The bond hummed between us, and I felt his wolf rising, possessive, protective, utterly certain. "I am afraid, but not of you, of what this world will do to you if I claim you publicly." "Then don't!" My voice cracked. "Let me go. We'll both pretend this never happened." For a long moment he just looked at me. His thumb brushed across my pulse point, and I wondered if he could feel how fast my heart was racing. Through the bond, I felt his decision solidifying, a terrible, immovable resolve that made my stomach drop. "I can't," he said quietly. Then he released my wrist, turned, and walked back toward the center of the ceremony hall. Every eye followed him. The crowd pressed closer, eager to see what their Alpha would do, how he would handle this cosmic mistake. I stayed frozen by the exit, my escape route clear, every muscle in my body screaming at me to run. Marcus Thorne stopped in the exact center of the hall. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner, commanding and absolute. "Clara Hayes is my chosen mate." The words rang out like a declaration of war. "She is your Luna." The silence that followed was deafening. Chapter 1. Before the fall, the morning of the mating ceremony, I'd woken up at 4 a.m. with my grandmother's voice in my head. "Every stitch is an act of faith, Clara. A belief that broken things can be made whole." I'd sat at my sewing table in the dark, the wedding dress spread across my lap like a ghost. The fabric was old, older than me, older than Grandma had been when she died 6 months ago. It had been her mother's dress, saved and stored and promised to me on the only day that mattered. "I'm sorry I'm not getting married in it, Grandma," I'd whispered to the empty apartment, "but maybe this is close enough." The Silverpine mating ceremony was invite-only, a glittering event where unmated wolves could meet, dance, and let the fates decide if they'd found their forever. I'd received my invitation 2 weeks ago, a heavy cream cardstock with my name written in calligraphy that made me feel like a fraud just holding it. "Clara Hayes, in recognition of your grandmother's service to the Silverpine Pack. You are invited..." Service. That was their polite word for it. Grandma had been their healer, the human woman who'd dedicated 50 years to patching up wounded wolves, delivering their babies, sitting with their dying. She'd loved them. I'd watched her give everything to a pack that tolerated her presence, but never truly accepted her. When she died, they'd sent flowers. A nice arrangement, probably expensive. Not a single wolf had come to the funeral, but they'd sent an invitation to the mating ceremony because that's what you did for servants who'd earned it. You let their orphaned granddaughters come to one fancy party, let them see what belonging looked like from the outside. I'd almost thrown the invitation away. Almost. But then I'd opened Grandma's hope chest and found the dress, and something in me decided that if I was going to spend one night pretending I belonged, I'd do it wearing the only thing she'd ever wanted me to have. The sewing took 6 days. The dress had been cut for a woman 3 inches taller and 2 sizes smaller, so I'd had to take it apart and rebuild it piece by piece. Every stitch careful, every seam straight, every bit of my skill poured into making something old into something that might, if I was lucky, pass for beautiful. When I'd finished, just after midnight on the night of the ceremony, I'd stood in front of my bathroom mirror and looked at myself honestly for the first time in months. The dress fit perfectly now. The ivory lace made my skin look less pale, less tired. I'd twisted my dark hair into a simple updo, leaving a few curls loose because I'd never been able to afford the sleek, perfect styles the elite wolves wore. I looked decent. Not stunning, not memorable, but decent enough to blend in. That was the goal. Blend in. Survive the night. Go home and return to my invisible life where I belonged. I'd learned to read a room the way some people read books, quickly, quietly, searching for the exits before anyone noticed I didn't belong. The Silverpine ceremony hall had 12. I'd counted them all before I even stepped inside. The hall itself was overwhelming. Marble floors that reflected the chandelier light like pools of liquid gold. Vaulted ceilings painted with scenes of wolves running beneath full moons. Tables draped in midnight blue silk, centerpieces of white roses and silver branches. Everything was elegant, expensive, designed to make you feel small. I felt microscopic. The wolves themselves were worse than the decor. They moved with a grace that came from being stronger, faster, better than human. The women wore gowns that probably cost more than my yearly rent, sleek designer pieces that hugged every perfect curve, glittered with crystals, made them look like they'd stepped off a runway. The men were worse, beautiful in a way that was almost painful, all chiseled features and powerful builds and eyes that glowed when they let their wolves surface. I'd tucked myself against the wall near the champagne fountain, nursing a glass of sparkling water and trying to be a piece of furniture. It had worked for almost an hour. Then Vivian Blackwood had noticed me. I'd known who she was, of course. Everyone knew Vivian. Daughter of the Pax Beta, bred from champion bloodlines, beautiful enough to make other women question their worth just by existing. She wore a crimson gown that fit her like it had been painted on. Her dark hair swept into an intricate style that probably required 3 stylists and an engineering degree. She'd looked at me, and her perfect mouth had curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Is that vintage?" she'd asked loud enough for her friends to hear. I'd nodded, hoping that would be the end of it. It wasn't. How quaint. She'd moved closer, and her friends had followed like pilot fish trailing a shark. "Did you make it yourself?" "Yes." My voice had been steady. I'd been proud of that. "I thought so." Vivian had reached out and touched the lace at my shoulder, her fingers delicate and cruel. "You can always tell handmade from professional work. The stitching is so uneven." The stitching was perfect. I'd checked every seam 3 times, but I'd said nothing, just stood there and let her examine me like I was a project for evaluation. "Still," she'd continued, "it's sweet that you tried. Very resourceful." That's when the others had started laughing. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough. Enough to make the sound carry. To make heads turn. To transform my invisibility into spectacle. I'd stood there in my grandmother's dress, in the only inheritance I'd ever received, and felt every stitch of it turn to shame. That's when I'd decided to leave. When I'd turned toward the nearest exit and found myself drowning in humiliation so thick I could barely breathe. That's when I'd felt him watching me. That's when everything changed. Chapter 2. The Claiming. The walk back to the center of the hall after Marcus's announcement felt like moving through water. Every step took too long. Every breath was too loud. Every eye in the room was on me, and I could feel their judgment like a physical weight pressing down on my shoulders. He'd claimed me. The Alpha had claimed me, publicly and irrevocably, in front of everyone who mattered. And I wanted to disappear into the floor. Marcus stood waiting, his hand extended toward me. Through the bond, that impossible golden thread connecting us, I felt his wolf prowling just beneath his skin, demanding I come to him. The human side of him was quieter, more controlled, but underneath it all was that fear. That terrible, suffocating fear that I couldn't understand and couldn't escape. I didn't take his hand. I walked to him on my own, my spine straight, my chin up, because if I was going to be humiliated, I'd do it with whatever dignity I could scrape together. When I reached him, he leaned down and spoke quietly. Just for me. I'm sorry. This wasn't how I wanted to do this. Then why did you? The question came out sharper than I'd intended. Because you were leaving. His eyes, those impossible gold eyes, searched mine. And I couldn't let you go thinking you were anything less than extraordinary. The words should have been romantic. They should have made my heart flutter, should have felt like validation. Instead, they felt like a cage door closing. Because, extraordinary or not, I was still the human girl in the handmade dress, and he was still the alpha who'd just painted a target on my back. The Luna ceremony will take place in 3 days, Marcus announced to the hall. His voice was calm, authoritative, giving no room for argument. The pack will gather to witness the bond and welcome Clara as your Luna. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Not quite protest, but not quite acceptance either. I felt Marcus tense beside me, felt his wolf surge forward through the bond, ready to defend me against his own pack. Are there any who wish to challenge this choice? The question was a formality, but the danger in his voice was real. Silence. No one was stupid enough to challenge an alpha over his mate choice, even if that choice was incomprehensible. Then it settled. Marcus turned to me, and his hand found mine. The contact sent heat racing up my arm, the bond flaring bright and insistent between us. May I have this dance? It wasn't really a question. The first dance between claimed mates was tradition, expected, mandatory. I nodded because there was nothing else to do. He led me to the center of the dance floor, and the crowd parted around us like we were contagious. The orchestra started playing, something slow and classical that I didn't recognize. Marcus pulled me close, one hand at my waist, the other cradling my fingers like they were precious. We moved, and I tried not to think about how perfectly I fit against him. Tried not to notice how his thumb traced small circles on my hip, or how his wolf hummed with satisfaction through the bond every time I took a breath. You're angry, he murmured. You can feel that through the bond? I asked bitterly. I don't need the bond to feel it. You're practically vibrating with it. Then you should have thought about that before you claimed me in front of everyone. His jaw tightened. Would you have preferred I let you leave? Let you spend the rest of your life thinking you weren't good enough? I would have preferred you ask me first. The words came out too loud, and I felt several wolves turn to stare. I lowered my voice to a harsh whisper. You felt what I felt through the bond. You know I didn't want this. You wanted to be invisible, he corrected softly. That's not the same as not wanting to be seen. You don't know anything about me. I know you made that dress yourself. I know it meant something to you, something important. I know you walked into a room full of wolves who could tear you apart, and you held your head high until they laughed. I know you were brave enough to come here alone, and I know, his voice dropped lower, almost a growl. I know that when the bond snapped into place, your first instinct was to run, not toward me, away. The accuracy of it stole my breath. Through the bond, I felt his hurt, his confusion, his desperate need to understand why I'd reject something that felt so inevitable to him. Of course I ran, I whispered. You were afraid. I felt it. Whatever this bond is, you didn't want it any more than I did. He stopped dancing. Right there in the middle of the floor, he stopped moving and looked down at me with something that might have been devastation. "You think I'm afraid of you?" "I don't think." "I know. The bond doesn't lie." "You're right." His hand tightened on my waist. "It doesn't. So feel this." The bond flared between us, blazing bright and hot, and suddenly I was drowning in his emotions. Not the surface feelings I'd been sensing, but everything underneath. The fierce, possessive need that made his wolf want to carry me away from everyone who'd ever made me feel small. The wonder of finding someone he'd stopped believing existed. The certainty that I was his, that we belonged to each other, that the universe had finally done something right. And underneath all of it, yes, fear. But not fear of me. Fear for me. Fear of what his world would do to someone soft and human and breakable. Fear that claiming me would destroy me the way his father's claiming had destroyed his mother. Fear that loving me would be the thing that killed me. I pulled back, gasping, the weight of his emotions too much to bear. "Stop. Please." He released the bond immediately, and the sudden absence felt like a loss. We stood there on the dance floor, wolves watching us with predatory interest, and I struggled to find my balance again. "I'm not afraid of you, Clara," Marcus said quietly. "I'm afraid I won't be able to protect you from what being Luna means." "Then don't make me Luna." My voice shook. "Let me go." "I can't." The words were raw, honest, devastating. "My wolf has chosen you. The bond is set. Even if I wanted to undo it, and I don't, it's too late. The only question now is whether you'll accept it, or spend the rest of your life fighting something that's already done." The rest of the dance passed in silence. When the music ended, Marcus escorted me to a private room off the main hall, a smaller space with comfortable chairs and walls that muffled the sound of the party outside. Pack elders were already waiting, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned to openly hostile. "Alpha," one of them said. Elder Margot, a woman who looked 70, but was probably closer to 200. "This is unexpected." "The mate bond is never unexpected," Marcus replied smoothly. "It simply is. A human Luna." Another elder, Thomas, made it sound like a disease. "The pack will never accept it. The pack will accept what I tell them to accept. With respect, Alpha, pack law requires that a Luna prove herself worthy of the position." Margot's voice was careful, diplomatic. "The Lunar Rite exists for a reason." My stomach dropped. I'd heard of the Lunar Rite, everyone had. A spiritual trial that tested a potential Luna's strength, wisdom, and connection to the pack. It was dangerous even for werewolves. For a human, it was potentially fatal. "Clara hasn't even accepted the bond yet," Marcus said sharply. "We're not discussing the rite." "Then what are we discussing?" Thomas challenged. "You've claimed her publicly, Alpha. The pack has seen. You can't simply keep her locked away until she decides whether she wants to stay." "I'm standing right here." The words came out before I could stop them. 4 sets of eyes turned to me, 3 elder wolves and 1 alpha who looked equal parts proud and worried. "I can speak for myself. Can you?" Margot's eyes were shrewd. "Then tell us, Clara Hayes. Do you accept the mate bond? Do you accept your role as Luna of the Silverpine Pack?" I felt Marcus tense beside me, felt his wolf surge forward through the bond ready to defend me. But this was my decision. He couldn't make it for me, no matter how much he wanted to. I looked at Margot, at Thomas, at the other elders whose names I didn't know. I thought about the laughter in the ceremony hall, about Vivian's cruel smile, about all the ways this pack had made me feel small and worthless and invisible. Then I thought about Marcus's hand at my waist during the dance, about the fierce protectiveness I'd felt through the bond, about the way he'd looked at me like I was something precious instead of something disposable. "I need time," I said finally. "This bond. It's new. I don't understand it. I don't understand him. And I don't understand why you're all so certain I'll fail before I've even been given a chance to try." "Because humans are fragile," Thomas said bluntly. "The position of Luna requires strength, resilience, the ability to lead wolves who could kill you with one hand. You'll forgive us for questioning whether you possess those qualities. My grandmother healed this pack for 50 years. My voice was steady, cold. She birthed your children, saved your wounded, sat with your dying. She was human, and she was stronger than most of the wolves she served. So if you want to question my worth based on my species, Elder Thomas, perhaps you should first question your own assumptions about what strength looks like." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Marcus made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. Through the bond, I felt his approval, his pride, his fierce satisfaction that I'd stood my ground. 3 days, Margot said finally. "You have 3 days to decide whether you'll accept the bond and submit to the Lunar Rite. If you decline, the claiming will be considered void, and you'll be free to return to your previous life. And if I accept, then you'll prove yourself worthy, or die trying." She said it matter-of-factly, like death was just another item on a checklist. "Those are the terms. Do you understand them?" I understood. I understood that they wanted me to fail. I understood that they saw me as a mistake, a weakness in their Alpha's judgment, something to be corrected. I understood that no matter what I chose, I was going to disappoint someone. "I understand," I said quietly. The elders left, filing out of the room with expressions that suggested they'd already written my obituary. When the door closed behind them, Marcus turned to me with something desperate in his eyes. "You don't have to do this," he said. "The rite is dangerous. People have died." "People or humans?" He flinched. "Both. How many humans have attempted the Lunar Rite?" His silence was answer enough. "That's what I thought." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warmth of the room. "So, I'd be the first." "Clara, don't." I held up a hand, stopping him. "Don't try to convince me one way or the other. You said it yourself. This is my choice. So let me make it." He wanted to argue. I could feel it through the bond, his need to protect me, warring with his respect for my autonomy. Finally, he nodded. "I'll take you home," he said. "I can get home myself." "Clara." My name in his voice was a plea. "Please, let me do this one thing." I was too tired to argue, too overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 3 hours. So I nodded and let him lead me out through a side exit where his car was waiting. The drive to my apartment was quiet. Marcus didn't try to fill the silence with meaningless conversation, and I was grateful. I sat in the passenger seat of his sleek black car and watched the city lights blur past my window. When we pulled up in front of my building, a worn-down complex in the cheapest part of town, I felt his judgment through the bond before I heard it in his voice. "You live here?" "Not everyone has an Alpha's salary," I said defensively. "That's not—" He stopped, started again. "I'm not judging the building. I'm worried about your safety. I've lived here for 3 years. I'm fine. You're unmated and human in a neighborhood with a high concentration of rogues. I'm also invisible and unimportant. No one bothers with me." I regretted the words immediately. Through the bond, I felt them hit him like a physical blow, his wolf snarling at the idea that I thought of myself as unimportant. "I should go," I said quickly, reaching for the door handle. "Clara, wait." His hand caught mine, warm and careful. "I meant what I said earlier. You're not a mistake. You're not a burden. And you're sure as hell not invisible anymore." "That's what I'm afraid of," I whispered. I pulled free and climbed out of the car before he could respond. I didn't look back as I walked into my building, didn't let myself feel what I knew he was feeling through the bond, the desperate wish that I'd chosen differently. that I'd stayed. I made it to my apartment, locked the door behind me, and slid down to sit on the floor with my back against the wood. Then, finally alone, I let myself feel everything. The humiliation of being mocked, the shock of being claimed, the terror of being seen, the confusion of the bond showing me Marcus's emotions when I barely understood my own, the weight of a choice I had 3 days to make: accept a bond with a man I didn't know, and risk my life in a trial designed to prove I wasn't good enough, or walk away and spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been. I pulled my knees to my chest and rested my forehead against them. The dress, Grandma's beautiful, perfect dress, was wrinkled now, the lace slightly torn where someone had stepped on the hem during the chaos. "I don't know what to do, Grandma," I whispered to the empty apartment. But she didn't answer. She was gone, and I was alone, and in 3 days I'd have to decide whether to stay that way. Chapter 3, The Reluctant Luna. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at my ceiling and feeling Marcus through the bond, a constant presence at the edge of my consciousness, worried and watchful and awake. He was probably in his office at the pack house, dealing with the fallout from his announcement. I could feel his frustration, his anger at wolves who questioned his choice, his bone-deep exhaustion from carrying the weight of pack leadership. I tried to close off my end of the bond, to give him privacy and myself some peace, but I didn't know how. The connection hummed between us, insistent and invasive, letting me feel things I had no right to feel. At 6 a.m., there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a designer pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Clara Hayes?" She didn't wait for confirmation. "I'm Simone, the Pack's protocol advisor. Alpha Thorne has asked me to begin your Luna training. It's 6 in the morning. Luna training begins at dawn." She swept past me into my apartment, her nose wrinkling slightly as she took in the worn furniture, the cramped space, the obvious poverty. "We have 3 days to teach you everything you need to know about Pack protocol, hierarchy, ceremony, and politics. We're already behind schedule." I closed the door slowly, my exhaustion making everything feel surreal. "I haven't decided if I'm accepting the bond yet." "Then you'll train while you decide." Simone pulled out a tablet and began swiping through screens. "We'll start with basic pack hierarchy. There are 7 ranks within Silverpine, each with specific protocols for interaction. As Luna, you'll outrank everyone except the Alpha himself. But that authority must be earned through respect, not simply granted through the bond. Simone, we'll also need to address your wardrobe, your presentation, your public speaking skills. The Luna is the Pack's heart. You'll be expected to mediate disputes, counsel wolves in crisis, represent Silverpine at interpack gatherings." She looked up from her tablet, her expression coolly assessing. "You understand this is more than just being the Alpha's mate, yes? This is a leadership position. Lives will depend on your judgment." The weight of it pressed down on me like a physical thing. "I can't do this." "Then you should walk away now." Simone's voice was matter-of-fact, neither kind nor cruel. "Alpha Thorne believes you can. Personally, I think he's let the mate bond cloud his judgment. But my opinion is irrelevant. The only question that matters is, what do you believe?" I didn't have an answer. "Get dressed," Simone said briskly. "Something appropriate for pack headquarters. We have a full day ahead." The Silverpine Pack house was a sprawling estate on the outskirts of the city, all stone and timber and deliberate intimidation. As Simone's car pulled through the gates, I felt wolves watching us, watching me, through windows and from the gardens. The training room she led me to was filled with women. I recognized most of them from the ceremony. Elite daughters, high-ranking wolves, the same ones who'd laughed at my dress. Vivian Blackwood stood front and center, her expression carefully neutral. "Ladies," Simone announced, "this is Clara Hayes, your potential future Luna. She'll be joining us for protocol training." The silence was deafening. "Clara, please take a seat." Simone gestured to an empty chair at the front of the room, right in front, where everyone could see me, judge me, watch me fail. I sat. The next 3 hours were designed to humiliate me. Simone would ask questions about pack protocol, pack history, pack hierarchy. The other women answered perfectly, their voices confident and bored. This was knowledge they'd grown up with, breathed since birth. I knew none of it. "Clara, can you name the 3 pillars of pack law?" I couldn't. "Clara, what is the traditional response when an alpha enters the room?" I didn't know. "Clara, explain the significance of the Luna's role in the claiming ceremony." I had no idea. With every question I couldn't answer, I felt the other women's satisfaction growing. Vivian didn't even try to hide her smile. "This is pointless," she said finally. "She doesn't know anything. She'll never pass the Lunar Rite." "The Rite tests character, not knowledge," Simone replied coolly. "Then she'll die." Vivian's voice was almost cheerful. "The Rite has killed wolves with years of training. She's a human who's been here for one morning. The kindest thing we could do is convince her to walk away now." "Is that what you're trying to do?" I asked quietly. "Convince me to leave?" Vivian turned to look at me directly for the first time. "I'm trying to save your life. Marcus will find another mate eventually, one who actually belongs in this world. But you'll only die once." There was something almost sincere in her voice, almost kind, which somehow made it worse. "Luna training is dismissed," Simone said abruptly. "Clara, you'll stay. We need to discuss ceremony protocols." The other women filed out, whispering among themselves. I caught fragments of their conversations. Pathetic, embarrassing. What was he thinking? When we were alone, Simone sat down across from me. "That was a disaster," I said flatly. "That was an assessment." She folded her hands on the table between us. "I needed to see how you'd respond to pressure, to hostility, to being set up to fail. And you didn't run." Something that might have been respect flickered in her eyes. "You didn't cry, didn't lash out, didn't make excuses. You sat there and took it. That's something." "It doesn't feel like something." "No, I imagine it feels like humiliation." She pulled out her tablet again. "The pack will test you every day until the ceremony. They'll sabotage you, mock you, try to drive you away. Not because they're cruel, though some of them are, but because they need to know you won't break under pressure. A weak Luna is a danger to the entire pack." "I'm not weak," I said quietly. "Prove it." She stood, gathering her things. "Marcus will be here in an hour to take you to lunch. Try not to embarrass him." She left, and I sat alone in the training room, my head pounding and my confidence shattered. Marcus found me in the gardens behind the pack house, sitting on a stone bench and trying to pull myself together before I had to face him. He sat down beside me without asking permission, close enough that our shoulders brushed. Through the bond, I felt his concern, his anger at what had happened in the training room, his need to fix things he couldn't fix. "Simone told me about this morning," he said. "Of course she did. Clara, don't apologize." I kept my eyes on the garden ahead, on the roses that probably cost more to maintain than I earned in a month. "You didn't do anything wrong. Your pack is just making sure I understand what I'm signing up for." "My pack is being cruel. Your pack is being realistic." I finally turned to look at him. "I failed every single question in there, Marcus. I don't know anything about being Luna. I don't know pack law, pack history, pack anything. Vivian was right. The Rite will kill me." "Vivian is scared." He said it with certainty. She thought she'd be my mate. Her family has been grooming her for the position since birth. And then the bond chose you instead. Maybe it chose wrong. The words hung between us, heavy and horrible. Through the bond, I felt his wolf roar in denial, felt his human side flinch like I'd struck him. "Don't say that." His voice was rough. "Don't ever say that." "Why not? You're thinking it. I can feel it through this." I gestured helplessly between us. "This thing. You're terrified, Marcus. Every time you look at me, you're afraid." "I told you what I'm afraid of." "You told me you're afraid of what being Luna will do to me. But underneath that, there's something else." I stood, needing space, needing to not feel his emotions tangling with mine. "You're afraid you made a mistake, that the bond picked someone who can't do this. And you know what? You're probably right." He was on his feet in an instant, moving with that impossible wolf speed to block my path. "You want to know what I'm really afraid of? I'm afraid that you'll believe what they're telling you, that you'll let their fear become yours, that you'll walk away from something real, because they've convinced you you're not enough. Maybe I'm not. You are." He caught my face between his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You are enough, Clara. You've always been enough. The bond doesn't make mistakes. My wolf doesn't make mistakes. And I sure as hell didn't make a mistake when I claimed you." "Then why can I feel your fear through the bond?" My voice broke. "Why do I feel you doubting this every time we're together?" His jaw tightened. For a long moment he just looked at me. Then he released a slow breath and let his hands fall away. "Come with me," he said. "There's something you need to see." He took me to his office, a large room lined with books and maps, dominated by a heavy oak desk that had probably been here for generations. On the wall behind the desk hung a portrait. A woman, beautiful, with dark hair and kind eyes, wearing ceremonial Luna robes. She looked happy in the painting. She looked whole. "My mother," Marcus said quietly, "Leanna Thorne." I stared at the portrait, at the warmth in her painted smile, and through the bond, I felt Marcus's grief like a wound that had never healed. "She was 23 when my father claimed her," he continued, "the youngest Luna in Pack history. She was brilliant, kind, strong, diplomatic. Everyone loved her." His voice hardened. "And my father destroyed her." "What happened?" "He didn't hit her. He didn't abuse her. Not in any way that left marks. He just used her. Every decision, every policy, every pack matter, he'd ask her opinion and then do exactly what he wanted anyway. He'd parade her at ceremonies, let her smile, and play the role of Luna. But behind closed doors, he treated her like a pretty accessory. Something to display, not someone to value." I watched him stare at his mother's portrait, and I understood. This was the source of his fear. This was the wound that bled through our bond. "She lasted 12 years, Marcus said. 12 years of pretending, of smiling, of being everything the pack needed while becoming nothing herself. When she died, it wasn't from any wolf attack or illness. She just gave up. Stopped eating, stopped speaking, stopped caring. The healers said it was a wasting sickness, but I knew. I was 15, and I watched my mother die of being Luna. Marcus, I rebuilt this pack, Clara. When I took over, I changed everything. No more forced matings, no more culling the weak, no more ruling through fear. I wanted to create a place where wolves could choose their own paths. He turned to face me, and his eyes were raw. But the elders have been pushing me to choose a mate from the bloodlines for 3 years. They want strength, tradition, proper leadership. They wanted me to pick someone like Vivian and mold her into the Luna they could control. But you chose me instead. The bond chose you." He moved closer, and I felt his intensity through every nerve. "My wolf chose you. And yes, I'm afraid, terrified, that making you Luna will do to you what it did to my mother. That this pack will eat you alive. That the politics and pressure and constant scrutiny will break you. That I'll be responsible for destroying someone else He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Someone else what? Loved? Cared for? The bond hummed between us, and I knew he wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. But here's what you need to understand, he continued. That fear, it's not doubt in you. It's doubt in them. In the system, in the role, in everything my father built, that I haven't been able to fully dismantle yet. When I look at you, Clara, I don't see someone who's not enough. I see someone who's already survived a world that tried to make her invisible. Someone who walked into a room full of predators and held her ground. Someone who made a dress with her own hands and wore it like armor. He reached out and took my hand, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. You think you're not enough because they've taught you to measure your worth by their standards, he said softly. But I'm terrified you're too much. Too strong, too stubborn, too unwilling to compromise yourself for anyone, including me. And that's exactly what this pack needs. That's exactly what I need. The words should have been comforting. They should have made me feel seen, valued, believed in. Instead, they made me feel the weight of everything I was failing to be. I couldn't answer a single question in there today, I whispered. I don't know anything about your world. Then learn. His voice was gentle, but unyielding. You have 3 days. I'll help you. Simone will help you. The elders might not want you to succeed, but I'll make sure you have every resource you need. And what if I still fail? Then we'll face that together. He squeezed my hand. But I don't think you will. And I don't think you will either, or you'd have already walked away. He was right. I hated that he was right. If I truly believed I couldn't do this, I would have left already. Would have declined the bond, returned to my invisible life, avoided all of this pain and pressure and impossible expectation. But something in me, some stubborn, reckless part that sounded uncomfortably like my grandmother, wanted to try, wanted to prove them all wrong, wanted to see what would happen if, just once, I stopped measuring my worth by other people's standards and started believing I might actually be enough. 3 days, I said finally. I'll give it 3 days. Through the bond, I felt his relief, his hope, his fierce determination to make sure I had everything I needed to succeed. I just hoped it would be enough. Chapter 4. The shift, the next 2 days blurred together in a haze of training, studying, and failing spectacularly at almost everything. Simone drilled me on pack hierarchy until I could recite every rank in my sleep. Marcus taught me pack history late into the night, his voice patient even when I mixed up the dates of important treaties for the 5th time. I learned ceremonial protocols, interpack politics, the delicate balance of power that kept Silverpine stable. The elite women continued to sabotage me at every opportunity. Someone accidentally gave me the wrong information about a ceremonial greeting, making me look foolish in front of visiting pack members. My formal robes went missing the day before I was supposed to wear them for a pack dinner. Vivian continued to smile that cruel, pitying smile every time I struggled. But I didn't quit. Maybe it was spite. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the way Marcus looked at me when I got something right. Like I was confirming something he'd known all along. Whatever it was, I kept going. On the morning of the 3rd day, the day I was supposed to give my answer about the bond and the Lunar Rite, everything changed. I woke to the sound of howls. Not the ceremonial kind, not the joyful pack songs I'd heard during training. These were different, urgent, terrified. I threw on clothes and ran outside to find chaos. Wolves were streaming through the pack house gates, bloodied and limping. Children crying. Adults shouting orders. The smell of blood thick in the air. "Rogue attack!" someone shouted. "The eastern border! They broke through the defenses!" I stood frozen in the doorway, watching the wounded flood in. This was pack business. Wolf business. I wasn't Luna yet. I wasn't anything yet. I should stay out of the way. Then I saw a young wolf, maybe 16, stumble and fall. Blood poured from a gash on his arm, and he couldn't get back up. My body moved before my mind caught up. I ran to him, dropped to my knees beside him. "Hey, look at me. What's your name?" "Kai." His voice shook. "It hurts. It hurts so much. I know it does." I pulled off my jacket and pressed it against the wound, trying to staunch the bleeding. The gash was deep, ugly, made by claws that had meant to kill. "But you're going to be fine. The healers are coming. They're overwhelmed." A woman's voice behind me. I turned to see an older wolf, her medical bag already out. "Too many wounded. Not enough hands." "Tell me what to do," I said immediately. She looked at me, really looked at me, assessing. Then she must have seen something she trusted, because she nodded. "Can you sew?" Could I sew? I almost laughed. Yes. "Then come with me." The medical den was carnage. Wolves lay on every available surface, tables, cots, floors. Some were unconscious, some were screaming. All of them were bleeding. The healer, her name was Mara, thrust supplies into my hands. Needle, thread, antiseptic. "The wounds need to be cleaned and stitched. Start with the ones who aren't critical. I'll handle the worst cases." I didn't hesitate. I'd sewn 1,000 seams, repaired 1,000 torn pieces of fabric. This was different. Flesh instead of cloth, blood instead of thread, lives instead of garments. But my hands knew what to do. I moved from wolf to wolf, cleaning wounds, stitching gashes, speaking quietly to keep them calm. Some of them recognized me, the human girl who thought she could be Luna. I felt their surprise, their skepticism, their gradual grudging respect as I worked quickly and efficiently. "You're good at this," one of them said. A warrior, his face scarred from old battles, watching me close a wound on his shoulder with steady hands. "My grandmother taught me." I tied off the stitch and moved to the next wolf. She used to say the same steady hand that could mend a dress could mend anything. She was the old healer. Caitlin. You knew her? She saved my life twice. He watched me work with something like wonder. "You have her hands. Her calm." I hadn't thought about it that way. But as I moved through the den, I realized he was right. Grandma had spent 50 years doing exactly this, sitting with the wounded, the scared, the broken, and making them whole again. She'd been Luna in everything but name. The thought steadied me. Hours passed. The wounded kept coming. My hands cramped from holding the needle. My back ached from bending over injured wolves. But I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not when there were still people who needed help. Finally, Mara called out that the last of the critical patients were stable. I sank down onto a bench, exhausted and covered in blood that wasn't mine. That's when I felt it through the bond. A surge of emotion so intense it knocked the breath from my lungs. Pride, wonder. Something that felt almost like worship. I looked up to find Marcus standing in the doorway of the medical den, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "How long have you been here?" he asked quietly. "Since the attack started. 6 hours, maybe?" "You've been sewing up wounded wolves for 6 hours. Someone had to." I looked down at my blood-stained hands. Mara needed help. He moved into the room, navigating around the sleeping wounded with careful grace. When he reached me, he crouched down so we were eye level. "I came here to check on my pack," he said, "and I found half of them talking about how the potential Luna worked herself to exhaustion saving lives. Kai told me you stopped his bleeding when he thought he was going to die." "The warrior," Marcus said, "you have your grandmother's hands." He reached out and took one of those hands in his, turning it over to look at the small cuts from needle pricks, the blood under my fingernails. I was so afraid this role would break you. I didn't realize you were already exactly what we needed. Through the bond, I felt the truth of his words. The fear was still there. It would probably always be there, but it was quieter now, overwhelmed by something bigger. Certainty. I haven't said yes to the bond yet, I reminded him. I know. He brought my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my blood-stained knuckles. But you're here anyway, fighting for my pack like they're already yours. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are, Clara. I'm just doing what my grandmother would have done. No. His voice was firm. You're doing what you do. This isn't about living up to her legacy. This is you, making your own choice about who you want to be. Maybe he was right. Maybe for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to earn my place or prove my worth or make myself useful enough to deserve existence. Maybe I was just being, helping because I could, because it was needed, because somewhere in the chaos and blood and desperation, I'd forgotten to question whether I belonged. I'd just belonged. The elders want my answer today, I said quietly. And what will you tell them? I looked around the medical den at the sleeping wolves, their wounds closed, their pain eased. I thought about Kai's grateful smile when I'd told him he'd be fine, about the warrior who'd seen my grandmother in my hands, about Mara's nod of approval when the last patient was stable. I thought about Marcus's mother, trapped in a role that had killed her spirit, about the fear that had been bleeding through our bond since the moment we met, about the impossible weight of being Luna. Then I thought about the dress I'd sewn myself, about all the broken things I'd mended over the years, about my grandmother's voice in my head. Every stitch is an act of faith. I'll tell them yes, I said. The words felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying and irrevocable, and strangely freeing. Marcus's hand tightened on mine. Through the bond, I felt his relief crash into me like a wave, so intense I gasped. You're sure? He asked. No. I laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. I'm not sure about anything, but I'm tired of running from things that scare me, and I'm tired of letting other people decide what I'm capable of. The Lunar Rite will probably kill me, I finished. I know, everyone keeps reminding me, but you know what? If I'm going to die, I'd rather die trying to be something more than I was, than live safely as nothing at all. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he pulled me close and kissed me, not carefully, not tentatively, but like he'd been holding back since the moment we met and couldn't hold back anymore. His mouth was demanding, desperate, claiming me in a way that made the bond between us flare bright and golden and impossibly right. I kissed him back with everything I had, all my fear, all my hope, all my reckless determination to prove I was more than the invisible girl in the homemade dress. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. For the record, he murmured, I don't think you're going to die. I think you're going to terrify them all. Through the bond, I felt his certainty, his absolute, unshakable belief in me. I wanted so badly to believe it too. That night, I stood before the pack elders in the formal ceremony room and spoke the words that would change everything. I accept the mate bond with Alpha Marcus Thorne, and I accept the challenge of the Lunar Rite. Elder Margot's expression was unreadable. You understand what you're agreeing to? I understand that you want me to prove I'm worthy. I understand that humans have never attempted the rite before. I understand that I might die. I kept my voice steady. I also understand that if I succeed, you'll have to stop treating me like I'm disposable. Something that might have been amusement flickered in Margot's eyes. The rite will take place tomorrow at moonrise. You'll enter the sacred grove alone and face 3 trials. One of the body, one of the mind, and one of the spirit. We cannot tell you what these trials will be, The grove reveals what each potential Luna needs to face. How will I know if I've passed? If you survive. Elder Thomas's voice was flat. That's the only measurement that matters. Marcus stepped forward, his wolf rising close to the surface. I want to go with her. The rite is undertaken alone, Margot said firmly. Those are the terms. She knew them when she accepted. She's human, which is why she must do this alone. Margot's gaze was steely. If you help her, the rite is void. If she cannot face these trials by herself, then she cannot serve as Luna. That is pack law, Alpha. Even you must abide by it. I felt Marcus's rage through the bond, his desperate need to protect me warring with his responsibility to honor pack tradition. I reached out and took his hand, squeezing gently. It's okay, I said quietly. I can do this. Liar, his eyes said. You're terrified. Yes, mine answered back, but I'm doing it anyway. That night, Marcus held me in his quarters at the pack house, not intimately, just held me, like he could keep me safe through proximity alone. I felt his fear bleeding through the bond, his wolf prowling restlessly, his human side running through scenarios where I didn't come back from the sacred grove. Talk to me, I whispered into the darkness. Tell me something real. Like what? Like why you became Alpha if you knew what it would cost. Like why you stayed when you could have walked away from all of this. He was quiet for a long time. Then, because walking away would have meant letting my father's legacy stand. Letting wolves suffer under the kind of leadership that values strength over compassion, obedience over choice. I couldn't do that. Even though it meant sacrificing your own happiness. Happiness felt selfish when the pack was bleeding. His arm tightened around me. But then the bond chose you, and for the first time in 7 years, I wanted something for myself. Something that had nothing to do with duty or legacy or what the pack needed. I just wanted you. The confession felt raw, honest, devastating. I'm sorry, I said softly. For what? For making this harder. For not being the mate you needed. Someone strong. Someone who knows this world. Someone who doesn't need protection. Clara, he turned me to face him in the darkness. You think I wanted someone who would fit perfectly into this role? Someone who would smile and nod and never challenge anything? That's what my father had. That's what destroyed my mother. His hand cupped my face. I wanted you before I knew your name. Before I knew anything except that you walked into a room full of people who made you feel small, and you held your head high anyway. That's the strength I needed. That's the strength the pack needs. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that tomorrow, when I walked into that sacred grove, I'd find that strength waiting for me. But mostly, I was just scared. Stay with me tonight, I whispered. I'm not going anywhere. He wasn't. I felt him through the bond all night, awake and watchful, standing guard against fears he couldn't fight. At moonrise tomorrow, I'd face the Lunar Rite, and I'd do it alone. Chapter 5. The Unraveling. The sacred grove stood at the heart of Silverpine territory, a circle of ancient trees that predated the pack, maybe predated wolves entirely. I'd never been here before. Humans weren't allowed. Now I stood at its edge, the setting sun painting everything gold and red, and tried not to think about all the ways I could die in the next few hours. The entire pack had gathered to witness my entry into the grove, 250 wolves standing in a massive circle, silent and watchful. I felt their expectations pressing down on me, some hoping I'd succeed, most waiting for me to fail. Marcus stood at the edge of the crowd, his jaw tight, his eyes never leaving me. Through the bond, I felt his terror like a living thing, his wolf fighting against every instinct to let me do this alone. Elder Margot stepped forward, carrying a ceremonial blade. "Clara Hayes, you have chosen to attempt the Lunar Rite. Once you enter the sacred grove, you cannot leave until the trials are complete, or until you are dead. Do you accept these terms?" My mouth was dry. "I accept." "Then by pack law and ancient tradition, I mark you as a seeker of the Luna's wisdom." She drew the blade across my palm, quick and shallow, just enough to draw blood. I didn't flinch. The pain was nothing compared to the fear churning in my gut. "Enter the grove," Margot commanded. "May you emerge worthy, or not at all." I looked at Marcus one last time. Through the bond, I tried to send him everything I couldn't say out loud. Gratitude, apology, a reckless sort of hope that maybe I'd see him again. Then I turned and walked into the sacred grove. The moment I crossed the tree line, everything changed. The sounds of the pack disappeared. The sunset vanished. I stood in absolute darkness, so complete I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. "Hello?" My voice echoed strangely, like the darkness was swallowing it. Light bloomed ahead of me, a soft silver glow leading deeper into the grove. I followed it because there was nothing else to do, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. The path led to a clearing. In the center stood a woman. She was beautiful, ageless and ethereal, with eyes that glowed the same silver as the light around us. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere, and nowhere at once. "Clara Hayes, you seek to become Luna." "I do." My voice shook. "Then you will face 3 trials. The first trial is of the body. Prove you have the strength to protect what is yours." The woman vanished. The clearing dissolved. I stood on a battlefield. Wolves surrounded me, rogues with red eyes and bared fangs, dozens of them, circling like sharks. In the center of the circle, tied and bleeding, was a child. I couldn't see their face, but I felt their terror through some instinct I didn't understand. Protect them. I had no weapons, no training, no wolf strength or speed or claws. Just my human body and the knowledge that if I failed, that child would die. The rogues attacked. I don't remember making the decision to fight. My body just moved, driven by something deeper than thought. I dodged the first set of claws, grabbed a fallen branch, swung it like a bat into a rogue's skull. It splintered on impact, and I grabbed another, longer one, sharper. They kept coming. I kept fighting. Claws raked across my back. I screamed and stabbed backward with the branch, felt it sink into flesh. Blood, mine, theirs I couldn't tell, made the ground slippery. I fell, rolled, came up swinging. I wasn't strong enough, wasn't fast enough. They were going to tear me apart, but if I went down, the child would die. So I didn't go down. I fought like my grandmother had taught me to sew, with patience, precision, refusing to waste a single movement. When they lunged, I dodged. When they circled, I positioned myself between them and the child. When they drew blood, I ignored the pain and kept moving. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only the fight, the child's terrified breathing behind me, the knowledge that I couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Then, suddenly, silence. I stood in the clearing, gasping for breath, covered in blood. The rogues were gone. The child was gone. In front of me stood the silver-eyed woman. "You have passed the first trial," she said. "You possess the strength to protect. Now face the second trial, the trial of the mind. Prove you have the wisdom to lead." The battlefield vanished. I stood in the pack's council chamber. Wolves filled the room. Elders, warriors, families with children. All of them were shouting, angry, turning on each other. I couldn't understand what they were fighting about, but I felt their rage, their fear, their pain. In the center of the chaos stood Marcus. His eyes were dead, his shoulders bowed under the weight of a pack tearing itself apart. Lead them. I tried to remember Simone's training, all the protocols and hierarchies I'd memorized, but this wasn't about protocol. This was about hearts. Stop! My voice cut through the noise. They didn't stop. They didn't even hear me. So I did what my grandmother had taught me. I found the wound. One by one, I moved through the crowd, listening. Really listening. The elder who felt disrespected. The warrior who felt undervalued. The mother who felt unheard. I didn't try to fix them. I just saw them, acknowledged them, made space for their pain. Slowly, the shouting quieted. The wolves stopped turning on each other and started looking at me instead. You're all right, I said quietly. Every one of you has been hurt. Every one of you has valid concerns. And you're all so busy fighting each other that you've forgotten you're on the same side. I turned to Marcus. You can't lead them by carrying all their pain alone. You'll break. They need to carry some of it with you. I turned back to the pack. And you can't expect him to fix everything without giving him the trust and support he needs to do it. Leadership isn't dictatorship. It's partnership. The silver-eyed woman appeared again. You have passed the second trial. You possess the wisdom to lead. Now face the third trial, the trial of the spirit. Prove you know who you are. The council chamber vanished. I stood in my grandmother's apartment. She sat in her chair by the window, just as I remembered her. Gray hair in a soft bun, lines around her eyes from years of smiling, hands worn from a lifetime of mending. She looked up when I entered, and her face lit with joy. Clara, darling, come sit with me. I wanted to run to her, wanted to throw my arms around her and never let go, but I knew, somehow I knew, this was the test. You're not real, I whispered. Does it matter? Her voice was exactly right, warm and patient. I'm here now. You can stay with me. Leave the grove. Leave the pack. Leave all that pain and pressure behind. Come home, Clara. Where you're safe. Where you belong. The offer was tempting. So tempting it hurt. I could walk away from the rite, return to my invisible life, never have to face pack politics or dangerous trials, or the weight of being Luna, never have to risk my heart on a bond I didn't understand. I could be safe. No, I said. Grandma's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes grew sharper. Why not? Because you wouldn't want me to. My voice cracked. You spent 50 years serving a pack that never fully accepted you. You died having given everything and received so little back. And if I walk away now, that's your legacy, teaching me to settle, to hide, to be grateful for scraps when I deserve the whole feast. So, you're doing this for me? No. The realization hit me like lightning. I'm doing this for myself, because I'm tired of being small. I'm tired of measuring my worth by other people's standards. I'm tired of being invisible. I looked at my grandmother, at the illusion of my grandmother, and felt tears burn my eyes. You taught me to mend things. Now I need to mend myself. And that means accepting that I deserve to be seen, that I deserve to take up space, that I deserve to be Luna, not because I've earned it through suffering, but because the bond chose me, and I chose it back. The apartment dissolved. I stood in the clearing, alone, the silver-eyed woman watching me with something that might have been approval. You have passed all 3 trials, she said. You possess strength, wisdom, and knowledge of self. But before I grant you the Luna's power, answer me this. Why did you truly come here? Was it to prove them wrong? To earn Marcus's love? To honor your grandmother's memory? All of those things, I admitted, and none of them. I came because I was tired of letting fear make my choices. I came because running away felt like dying slowly. I came because I stopped, searched for the truth buried beneath all my fear and doubt. Because some part of me believed I might actually be enough, and I needed to know if that part was right. And now? Now I know. The certainty settled into my bones, solid and unshakable. I am enough. Not because I passed your trials, but because I've always been enough, and I'm done waiting for permission to believe it. The silver-eyed woman smiled, and I felt power pour into me like light. It didn't hurt. It felt like coming home, like a missing piece sliding into place. I felt the bonds between every wolf in the pack, golden threads connecting them to each other, to Marcus, to me. I felt their fears, their hopes, their hearts. I felt what it meant to be Luna. The woman's voice echoed as the clearing dissolved. Go, Luna of Silverpine, your pack awaits. I walked out of the sacred grove at moonrise, exhausted and bloodied, and more certain of who I was than I'd ever been. The pack stood in stunned silence, staring at me like I was a ghost. Marcus broke through the crowd first, moving so fast he was a blur. He reached me and pulled me into his arms, his whole body shaking. You did it, he breathed against my hair. You actually did it. Did you doubt me? I asked, smiling, despite the pain radiating through every inch of my body. Terrified every second. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes roaming over my wounds. You're hurt? I'm fine. I was. The Luna power thrumming through me was already starting to heal the worst of the damage. Where are the elders? Elder Margot stepped forward, her expression unreadable. You survived the rite. That is, unprecedented for a human. I'm not just human anymore. I felt the truth of it through every new bond connecting me to the pack. I'm Luna, and I'd appreciate it if you'd stop testing me long enough to let me prove it. Something flickered in Margot's eyes. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of it. The Luna ceremony will take place tomorrow night, she said formally. The pack will gather to witness your ascension. No. Every wolf froze. No? Margot's eyebrows rose. No formal ceremony. Not yet. I looked around at the gathered pack, at wolves who doubted me, feared me, mocked me. I want to earn your loyalty before I wear your Luna robes. I want you to kneel because you choose to, not because tradition demands it. That's not how this works, Elder Thomas protested. Then maybe it's time it worked differently. I turned to Marcus. Your father ruled through fear and tradition. You rebuilt the pack on choice and mercy. Let me be the Luna who proves that's enough. Through the bond, I felt his pride, his fierce satisfaction that I was already reshaping the role into something better than it had been. As you wish, he said quietly. Then louder to the pack. Clara Hayes has passed the Lunar Rite. She is Luna by right and by power, but she will not demand your acceptance. She will earn it. The pack dispersed slowly, whispering among themselves. Some looked skeptical. Some looked curious. A few, like young Kai, whose life I'd saved in the medical den, looked at me with something like hope. Chapter 6. The Choice. The celebration of my survival lasted exactly one night. The next morning I woke to screams. I bolted upright in Marcus's bed, our bed now, though we still hadn't fully claimed each other beyond kisses and careful touches. Through the bond, I felt his alarm before I heard his voice. Rogues at the western border. They've taken hostages. I was dressed and running before my mind fully caught up. The pack house was chaos. Warriors arming themselves, families being evacuated to safe rooms, scouts reporting in with increasingly dire news. "It's not a random attack," Marcus's beta was saying when I reached the war room. "They're organized, led by someone who knows our defenses." "Silas?" Marcus's voice was flat, cold. Through the bond, I felt his rage and something darker. Guilt. My uncle has finally made his move. I'd heard the name Silas Thorne whispered in training. Marcus's uncle, his father's brother, exiled 7 years ago for brutality even the old Alpha couldn't tolerate. He'd been building a rogue pack ever since, waiting for his chance to take back what he thought was rightfully his. "How many hostages?" I asked. Every head in the room turned toward me. Some wolves still looked uncomfortable with my presence in pack strategy meetings. I ignored them. 6, the beta answered after glancing at Marcus for permission. 4 warriors, 2 civilians. He's holding them at the old mill. What does he want? To talk to the Alpha. Alone. The beta's expression was grim. "It's obviously a trap." "Obviously," Marcus agreed, "which is why I'm going." "You can't," multiple voices protested at once. "He has my wolves." Marcus's voice carried absolute authority. "I won't negotiate their lives. I'll meet his terms and end this." Through the bond, I felt his resolve, felt something else underneath, a bone-deep weariness, like he'd been waiting for this confrontation for 7 years, and was almost relieved it was finally here. I also felt his determination to keep me far away from whatever happened next. "I'm coming with you," I said. "No." "Marcus." "No." He turned to face me fully, and his eyes were pure wolf gold. "You just survived the Lunar Rite. You're still healing. I won't risk you. I'm Luna now. Your wolves are my wolves. I won't hide while they're in danger. This isn't about hiding. This is about Silas using you against me." His voice dropped lower, for my ears only. "He knows about the mate bond. If he gets his hands on you, Clara, he'll use you to break me. I can't." His jaw clenched. "I won't let that happen." I felt his fear through the bond, sharp and overwhelming. Not fear of Silas. Fear of losing me. "You need to trust me," I said quietly. "You stood there and watched me walk into the sacred grove alone, even though it terrified you. Trust me to stand with you now." For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he turned to his beta. "Gather a strike team. We leave in 20 minutes. He didn't say I could come. But he didn't say I couldn't. I took that as permission. The old mill sat on the edge of Silverpine territory, abandoned for decades. By the time we arrived, the sun was setting, painting everything in shades of blood and shadow. Silas Thorne stood in the center of the clearing, surrounded by 30 rogue wolves. He looked like Marcus might in 20 years, older, harder, with eyes that held no mercy. The hostages knelt in front of him, bound and gagged. "Nephew," Silas called out, "so good of you to come. And you brought your little human mate. How thoughtful." Marcus's hand found mine, squeezing once in warning before he stepped forward. "Let them go, Silas. This is between us." "Is it?" Silas smiled. "I thought it was about the pack. About what this pack has become under your weak leadership. Mercy for the feeble. Choice for those who should obey. And now..." His gaze raked over me with contempt. "A human Luna. Father must be rolling in his grave." "Father would be proud," Marcus said coldly. "He built this pack on fear and brutality. I rebuilt it on something stronger. That's what you can't accept." "Stronger?" Silas laughed. "You've made them soft. Weak. It's an insult to everything our bloodline stands for." "Then challenge me properly. Single combat. Alpha to Alpha. Leave the hostages out of it. Oh, I will challenge you. But first..." Silas's smile turned cruel. Your mate and I need to have a conversation. It happened faster than I could track. Rogues poured from the surrounding trees, not the 30 we'd seen, but dozens more. They'd been hiding, waiting. Marcus's strike team engaged immediately, the clearing erupting into violence. In the chaos, someone grabbed me from behind. I felt Marcus's rage explode through the bond, felt him trying to reach me. But Silas's rogues were keeping him occupied, deliberately separating us. I was dragged to a cage, an actual cage, like they'd been planning this all along. The rogue who'd grabbed me threw me inside and locked the door. Silas appeared moments later, crouching down to my level with that terrible smile. "Hello, Luna," he said mockingly. "Let's discuss your future. Or rather, your lack of one." Through the bars, I could see the battle raging. Marcus was a force of nature, pure alpha power and fury, tearing through rogues to get to me. But there were too many of them, and they were hurting him away, forcing him back. "He'll kill you for this," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was trying to beat out of my chest. "Perhaps, if he survives the next few minutes." Silas settled back on his heels. "But you know what's funny? I don't actually want to kill Marcus. I want to break him. Show him that mercy is weakness, that his precious new way of leading is nothing but a path to destruction. By killing me. By giving you a choice." His eyes gleamed. "Reject the mate bond. Do it publicly, loudly, so every wolf here can hear you. Humiliate my nephew, fracture his pack's loyalty, prove that even his own mate doesn't believe in his vision. Do that, and I'll let you walk away. You can go back to your little human life, forget all of this ever happened. And if I refuse, then I'll kill you slowly in front of him. Let him watch you die screaming, knowing he was too weak to save you. Either way, Marcus loses. But this way, at least you get to live." I stared at him through the bars of my cage. Through the bond, I felt Marcus's emotions, a hurricane of rage and terror and desperation. He was trying to reach me, fighting with everything he had. He was losing. The rogues were too many, too coordinated. In minutes, they'd have him pinned, would force him to watch whatever happened next. "You have 10 seconds, Silas said. "Choose." My hands found each other in my lap, fingers twisting together the way they had the night of the mating ceremony. I thought about that dress I'd made, Grandma's dress, sewn with steady hands and desperate hope. I thought about what Marcus had told me about his mother, how she'd lost herself in the role of Luna, had become hollow trying to be what everyone else needed. I thought about the sacred grove, about the silver-eyed woman asking me why I'd really come, because I was tired of letting fear make my choices. 5 seconds, Silas said. Through the bond, I felt Marcus finally break free of the rogues holding him back. Felt him running toward the cage, too far away to reach me in time. "I have my answer," I said quietly. Silas leaned forward eagerly. "Yes?" "I reject." Marcus's roar cut through the night. Even from a distance, the sound carried absolute authority, absolute rage. It made some of the rogues falter, ears flattening in automatic submission. "I reject your choice," I continued, looking Silas dead in the eye. "I reject your cruelty, your fear, your pathetic need to break people because you're too weak to build anything yourself. And I reject the idea that I should save my own life by destroying someone else's." Silas's expression darkened. "Wrong answer, little Luna." He reached for the cage door, and I saw my death in his eyes. Then the bond between Marcus and me blazed so bright it was blinding. I felt him offer everything through that connection. Not just his emotions, not just his support, but his power. His alpha strength, his wolf, his very essence. The bond had always been a two-way street, letting us feel each other's emotions. Now Marcus was trying to turn it into something more. A lifeline. "Take it," his voice whispered through the bond. "Take everything. I'd rather be nothing without you than Alpha watching you die." "No," I whispered out loud. "Marcus, no." But the power was already flooding into me. Luna magic combined with Alpha strength, and suddenly I understood what it meant to be a true pair. Not Alpha above Luna, not Luna serving Alpha, but equals sharing power, sharing burden, sharing everything. My hands found the cage bars. When I pulled, they bent like paper. Silas stumbled backward, shock clear on his face. "What?" I stepped out of the broken cage. Power thrummed through every cell of my body, my Luna magic multiplied by Marcus's Alpha strength. I could feel every wolf on this battlefield through the bonds connecting us. The Silverpine wolves, scared and fighting. The rogues, lost and angry and following Silas because they had nowhere else to go. I could feel all of them, and through that feeling, I could call them home. "Silverpine," I said quietly, but somehow my voice carried to every corner of the clearing. "Come to me." They came. Warriors broke off their fights and ran toward me, forming a protective circle. Scouts materialized from the shadows. Even the injured hostages crawled closer, drawn by the Luna call that I'd never used before. Marcus reached me a heartbeat later, blood-covered and breathing hard. Through the bond, I felt his shock at what I'd done, his fear that he'd given me too much. "I'm okay," I told him quietly. "We're okay." Then I turned to face the rogues. They'd stopped fighting, staring at me like I was something they'd never seen before. "You don't have to do this," I said to them. "I know what it's like to have nowhere to belong. To be told you're not good enough, not strong enough, that you'll never measure up. But following Silas won't fix that. It'll just make you into the thing that hurt you." "Don't listen to her," Silas snarled. "She's human. She's nothing." "I was human," I corrected. "Now I'm Luna. And I'm telling you, there's another way. Silverpine doesn't demand perfection. We don't cull the weak or force bonds or rule through fear. We protect each other. We choose each other. Every single day, we choose to stay." I held out my hand. "You can choose too. Join us or walk away. But this, attacking innocent wolves, following someone who only wants power, this doesn't have to be your story." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one rogue stepped forward, then another, then a dozen more, breaking away from Silas's forces and moving toward me with cautious hope in their eyes. Silas watched his army crumble, rage twisting his features. "You've stolen my wolves." "No," Marcus said quietly, moving to stand beside me. "You lost them the moment you chose fear over leadership. The moment you decided breaking others was easier than building something worth following. This isn't over." "Yes," I interrupted. "It is. Your wolves have made their choice. Now make yours. Leave Silverpine territory and never return, or face judgment for the lives you've taken tonight." Through the Luna bonds, I felt the rogues who'd joined us, their relief, their tentative hope, their desperate wish to believe they could be more than what Silas had made them. I felt Marcus too, his fierce pride in me, his wonder at what we'd built together in the space of a few terrible minutes. I felt whole. Silas must have seen something in our faces, some unity he'd never be able to break, because he turned and ran, and the few rogues still loyal to him ran with him. The battle was over. Chapter 7. The Becoming. The aftermath took hours. Wounded wolves to heal, new pack members to integrate, hostages to comfort. I moved through it all in a daze, the Luna power still thrumming through me, showing me exactly where I was needed most. When everything was finally stable, when the last wolf had been tended to, and the sun was rising over blood-stained ground, Marcus found me sitting alone by the mill's edge. He sat beside me without speaking, and through the bond I felt his exhaustion matching mine. "You offered me everything," I said quietly. "Your alpha power, your wolf, your life. If I'd pulled too much, you wouldn't have." His certainty was absolute. "I trusted you. You barely know me. I know you saved my pack tonight. I know you called rogues home with nothing but honesty and hope. I know—" He turned to face me. "I know I love you. Have since the moment you walked into that ceremony in your grandmother's dress and refused to be small even when they tried to make you invisible." The words should have terrified me, should have felt too fast, too soon, too much. Instead, they felt like coming home. "I love you too," I whispered. "Even though you're terrifying and bossy and way too willing to sacrifice yourself for everyone else." He laughed, the sound ragged but real. "We're a mess. We're perfect." Through the bond, I felt his agreement, his joy, his relief that we'd both survived the night. "The elders want to schedule the Luna ceremony," he said after a moment. "They're ready to acknowledge you officially now that you've—" He gestured at the battlefield around us. "Done all this. What do you want?" "I want you to stop asking permission and start claiming what's yours." His eyes were serious. "You've earned it 10 times over, Clara. The pack knows it. The elders know it. The only one who doesn't seem to know it is you." Maybe he was right. I'd spent so long trying to earn my place, to prove my worth, to be useful enough to deserve existence. But the truth was simpler and harder. I'd always been enough. The pack didn't need me to be perfect. They needed me to be present, to lead with compassion, to choose them every day the way they'd chosen me tonight. "Okay," I said. "Let's do the ceremony." 3 days later, I stood in the pack's ceremony hall, wearing robes I'd made myself, a blend of Grandma's dress fabric and Silverpine's ceremonial cloth, old and new woven together into something that was entirely mine. The pack gathered before me, every wolf from elder to pup, waiting. Elder Margot stepped forward to perform the traditional Luna blessing, but before she could speak, I held up my hand. "Before we do this," I said, "I have something I need to say." The hall went silent. I looked out at the sea of faces, some friendly, some still skeptical, all of them watching me with varying degrees of curiosity and judgment. "I know most of you didn't want me as your Luna," I said plainly. "I know you thought I was too weak, too human, too much of an outsider, and you know what? You were right to question it. Not because I wasn't enough. I was always enough. But because this role, this pack, these bonds, they should never be taken for granted. You should demand the best from your leaders. You should challenge us, question us, hold us accountable." I moved down from the platform, walking among them, letting them see me up close, bloodied, scarred, imperfect, and unbowed. I bled for this pack in the sacred grove. I bled for it again 3 days ago, fighting rogues. And I'll keep bleeding for it every day I wear these robes, because that's what it means to be Luna. Not perfection, not flawless leadership, but commitment. Showing up, choosing all of you even when it's hard. I stopped in front of Vivienne, who'd made my early days such hell. She met my eyes with something that might have been respect. "You wanted proof I was worthy," I said to her, to all of them. "I don't blame you. But here's what I learned in that sacred grove. Worthiness isn't something you can prove or earn or win through suffering. It's something you claim. And I'm claiming it now. Not because I've earned your approval, but because I choose to lead you, protect you, fight for you, whether you think I deserve to or not." I turned back to face the elders. "So yes, perform your ceremony. give me your official blessing. But know that with or without it, I am Luna. I became Luna the moment I stopped waiting for permission to be who I already was. The silence that followed was absolute. Then young Kai stepped forward. The wolf whose life I'd saved in the medical den, whose blood I'd stopped with my grandmother's dress. He knelt. Luna, he said simply. Mara, the healer, knelt beside him. Luna. One by one, the pack knelt. Not because tradition demanded it, because they chose to. Even Vivian, after a long moment, lowered herself to one knee. Her eyes met mine, and I saw acknowledgement there. Acceptance. Finally, only Marcus remained standing. He moved through the kneeling crowd to stand before me, and through the bond I felt his pride, his love, his absolute certainty that this was always how it was meant to be. He knelt. Luna, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. My mate, my equal, my choice. Through our bond, I felt the pack bonds settle into place. Permanent now, unbreakable, binding me to every wolf present in a web of connection that was terrifying and beautiful and right. I'd been invisible my whole life. Now I was seen by hundreds, needed by hundreds, responsible for hundreds of lives. And I wasn't afraid anymore. Epilogue. 6 months later, I sat in my workroom sewing a new dress. Not for myself this time, but for a young wolf who'd be presented to the pack at the next ceremony. Marcus found me there, leaning against the doorframe and watching me work with that soft expression he only wore when he thought I wasn't looking. You're staring, I said without looking up. I'm admiring. He moved into the room, settled beside me. The council meeting went well. The northern packs want to discuss treaty negotiations. Because they've heard about Silverpine's human Luna, and they're curious if I'm real. Because they've heard about Silverpine's Luna, and they want whatever we have. He took my hand, thread and all. You've changed this pack, Clara, made it stronger, kinder, better. Even the elders admit it now. Even Margot? Especially Margot. She told me yesterday that you're the best Luna Silverpine has seen in 3 generations. I smiled, tying off my stitch. The dress was nearly complete, simple and beautiful, made with the same steady hands that had sewn my grandmother's wedding dress into something new. Every stitch an act of faith. What are you thinking? Marcus asked quietly. I looked up at him, at this impossible, beautiful, infuriating man who'd claimed me in front of his entire pack and changed my life forever. I'm thinking I was wrong, I said. That night at the ceremony, when they mocked my dress and I wanted to disappear, I thought I was nothing, worthless, a mistake. And now? Now I know the truth. I was never nothing. I was just waiting to find people worth being seen by, waiting to find my own worth instead of measuring it by others' standards, waiting to find you. Through our bond, I felt his love crash over me like a wave, constant, overwhelming, absolutely certain. I'm glad you waited, he murmured, pulling me close. I'm glad you walked into that ceremony. I'm glad you stayed. I'm glad. I know. I pressed my hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, feeling the bond that tied us together in a way that went deeper than magic. I'm glad too. Outside, the pack was gathering for evening meal. I could feel them through the Luna bonds. Every joy, every worry, every small daily triumph that made up the life of a pack. They were mine to protect, to guide, to love. And I was theirs. Not because I'd earned it through suffering, not because I'd proven myself worthy through trials, but because I'd chosen them, and they'd chosen me back. That was enough. It had always been enough. I just needed to believe it. The end.